I'm excited to talk to my next guest. It's the sleep coach, Thomas Hinton, who is the CEO of Circadian Health and Performance. Thomas, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Ryan, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you because I understand very much how important sleep is to everything, to your day-to-day life, your happiness, performing as an athlete. And I know that's what you do. You work with a lot of athletes in a variety of sports. Mila Hill, who I recently interviewed. I also saw Jose Torres. So we'll dive into all that here in a minute. But first, I just want to start with telling me specifically what it is that you do. What are the methods that you do with your clients, and how did you get into this work?
So, how I like to explain it is I help athletes understand how and why sleep directly impacts their athletic, physical performance, and recovery through targeted sleep performance programs. So, it's customized sleep coaching because that's the foundation, that's the base of it is sleep. But I also use performance and recovery tools in conjunction with these programs because how you sleep directly impacts how effective your recovery practices are. So if you do that the right way, then you'll see the benefits here as well. And so I customize and tailor these programs, and then I hold their hand throughout the entire process. My time in healthcare has taught me that you can't just give someone a treatment plan or whatever and say, okay, I'll see you back in a couple of weeks or a month. They're not going to do it. You know what I mean? So there's a level of accountability and confidence and comfort knowing that they have someone to talk to, they can bounce stuff off of. So that's kind of how it works with me.
Okay. So obviously everyone is very unique, right? There's so many, people out there in the world, and everyone, kind of marches to the beat of their own drum. So how do you find out who should be on what specific sleep schedule? Like, tell me how you navigate all of that.
Yeah, so I do all that through the consultation. And so during the consultation, that's when I'm really learning about who they are as the person, but then also as the athlete. And I like to know both because those are two different people, because you're a different person within your sport than you are outside. And I'd hope so because especially like in combat sports, like walking around the grocery store just like, standing guillotine people, just knocking them out. So we're two different people, and stuff. So I want to learn who you are as a person, and I want to learn who you are within your sport. Because what that does is that helps me determine how compliant or non-compliant you're going to be, like how far or how serious you're going to take this. And so I'm listening to what they are doing. I'm listening to what they're not doing. I want to know, like, how they're eating, what they're eating, when they're eating, when they're working out, how they're working out, how they're recovering if they do that. And so I take all that information, and then I just put it all together, and then we meet and do what I call a plan overview, where we go through it together because I don't want to waste my time or their time, and then there's a bunch of back and forth. I don't like that. So we agree on it together, and then I deliver it to them, and then we meet weekly, or however. I mean, sometimes I have some that, I mean, they're texting me every day. Hey, what about this? What about this? So, but the core part of it is we meet weekly to talk about what's working, what's not working, what needs tweaked, different things like that. So
Okay. I got to ask you about a couple of things. I saw a post that you made on your Instagram geared around coffee. So let me ask you about that because I love coffee. When I was younger, I felt like, oh, this doesn't affect me. I can drink as much coffee as I like, and it just helped me, get as much energy as I needed throughout the day and whatnot. But as I got a little bit older, I noticed that I started having heart palpitations. So I started kind of, cutting it back a little bit. So tell me your stance on coffee. When's the best time to drink it? How much should you have, and how does it affect your sleep if you drink too much?
So for me, about 45 minutes to an hour after you wake up, have your first cup. And the reason is because we have cortisol, which is our stress hormone that helps us deal with, helps us prepare for the stress throughout the day. Well, it also acts as a wake promoter as well. And so what people don't realize is, when our bodies start the process of waking us up while we're still asleep, our cortisol levels start to increase, and it usually peaks about 45 minutes to an hour after we wake up. So when people get up, the first thing they do is go get coffee, like you're cutting in line, in that natural, wake up process. And so that's not good to do. And so that's why I usually tell people you're going to get your best benefit from your coffee when you allow your cortisol levels to peak. Then you'll get the bang for your buck from it. And so I have people that actually follow it. They're like, oh my gosh, like this is great. Like I definitely feel the difference. And so 1 cup I mean, there's some people I talk to, I mean, they drink coffee throughout the day. And then they wonder why they can't sleep. Well, caffeine has an 8 to 10 hour half life. You know what I mean? So have that first cup in the morning and then be done with it. And so a lot of people make that mistake where they're drinking coffee at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and then they're up until midnight, 1 o'clock, and like, oh, I don't know why I can't sleep. Then they start that, and then they start that process all over again the next day. So it's yeah, they go
Okay.
down that rabbit.
That's me. That's me. So okay, I'm taking that right there, and I'm going to utilize that moving forward. I also wanted to ask you too, Thomas, about alcohol. I'm not a professional athlete, so on the weekends, if I'm hanging out with friends or if I go out to dinner with my wife, I might have an adult beverage or two. How does that affect your sleep? How should you, I guess, use that in moderation if you do drink?
So what people don't realize, alcohol, while it is a sedative, um, it robs you of deep restorative sleep. So I always tell people like I don't care, care if you drink, but just don't drink too close to bedtime. Because like some people they'll drink, 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 and then it's like, oh, I'm sleeping, and I'll go to bed. And so what happens is, you may sleep, 8 to 10 hours, but then when you wake up, you still feel like trash. And so what happens is that your body has to metabolize that and break that down, and digest it, if you will. And that's not supposed to be active during that time, during sleep. That's the time that your body takes to heal itself and to repair itself and to regenerate and different things like that. Different organs and different parts of the body that are very very active throughout the day. They're tired. They have to rest. And so that's why you feel really bad the next day is because now your body is having to do this, go through this process, and it robs you of those deeper restorative stages of sleep. So now you don't feel the best when you wake up. So you don't feel good, you don't feel good at the time, and when you're doing it, then you don't feel good the next day either. So yeah.
Okay, I
So if
appreciate you.
you're gonna do alcohol, at least do it at least 1 to 2 hours before bed. But nothing after that. That's too close. So I think that'll help a lot of people out as well.
Okay, very good. I wanted to ask about that as well. Let's talk about a lot of the athletes that you work with, and let's start with Mila Hill. I had the pleasure of interviewing her recently. She clearly is a huge prospect in the MMA game to keep your eyes on. Tell me what it's been like working with her. How have you helped her in her career?
Amazing working with Mylan. She's committed. I mean, she's got good character. She's committed, dedicated. And as an athlete, if you have those three things, you're gonna do some damage. And no pun intended. She's doing some damage. It's really scary. It's funny. I'll tell you this real guy. I watched an interview that she had done with someone, and the look on her face when she was just like, "I feel like this is what I was born to do. Like I was born to do this." And I just got chills. I'm like, man, I feel sorry for anybody that gets in the ring with that. You know what I mean? Like to feel like that's what you're born to do. You know what I'm saying? Is to put people to sleep. So I love it though. But no, she's it's been amazing working with her. She listens. Like she's one of those athletes. Like she listens and she wants to learn more about how to protect her body, like how to perform better, how she can do this and that. So it's been great working with her. Like her family obviously trusts me, I'm saying, to be with her and to work with her, and that really means a lot to me. But no, she's great. Like she's been really good to work with. Like I said, like that's all I can ask for with athletes is that, if you come to me or if I come to you and say, hey, I want to help you, like listen to what I'm saying, and he does that to the team.
So I mentioned Jose Torres earlier in the interview as well. Do you still work with him? Who are some of the other athletes that you do work with on a regular basis?
He's like traveling right now because one of his fights got canceled a couple months ago. So he's just been like going on tour, just traveling, doing stuff, and having fun. So him and I talking, see how he's doing. Once he gets back and gets back, to home base, Chicago, excuse me, then we'll really start getting into the meat of things again, to get going. But I kind of want to go back real quick. I didn't answer your question. You asked what like things that I do with Mila. So one of the things that I do with her is like obviously we focus on her sleep schedule, maximizing that in order to optimize her performance. Cognition. That's big for combat fighters. I focus on that too. Is just the brain. You got to take care of that. You get hit in the face for a living, and there's way too much data out there that shows the cognitive decline that takes place in combat fighters, and a lot of them go into what's called an energy or adenosine, right? Where their brain cells no longer produce ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, the energy source that our cells use to operate. And so when you don't produce enough energy, things start falling apart. Especially up here. So I do that with her. Cupping. I do cupping with her. I was down in Louisiana for her most recent fight. And I cupped her prior to that. I do some muscle activation stuff. Man, I do a lot of stuff, man. Red light therapy. I do all that stuff, man. So just helping her, keeping her body prepared and keeping it healed. But now back to Jose. I mean, the same thing with him. I do the same thing with him. Obviously he's a much bigger brand, but he takes it serious as well, and he also listens, which I appreciate. A lot of times when you get people at a certain level, they're just kind of like, I'll do what I want to do, but whatever. But no, once I talk to them and I deliver to them like why I do what I do and the benefit that it has to them, then it's like, oh wow, this guy really knows what he's doing. Let's listen to him, and so he's doing really well too.
So what is your exact title or titles that you have in your profession?
So I call myself a sleep performance coach. That's what I call myself because I focus on, obviously sleep is the foundation, and then obviously performance is that's secondary to that sleep. So I call myself a sleep performance coach. There's not a lot of us out there, but I mean we're out there. There's some people call themselves sleep coaches. There's some physicians that consult with teams that do it. So I know Dr. Meeta Singh. She's one. She consulted. She consulted with the I think it was with the Phillies when they won the World Series a couple of years ago. She got a ring for it, which was pretty cool. So I'm trying to get in that world as well. Like I have individuals, but like I want to work with teams too. I can bring a lot of benefit to teams. So I'm trying to get into that world. Real big in combat fighting. So I'm for combat fighters say, hey, let's work on this. So yeah.
So when Mila wins the UFC World Championship, you're gonna get like a secondary belt that you'll be able to carry around and put in your office.
I'll take one.
I love it. So again, you talk about exactly what you do. How much schooling did you have to get to where you're at now? Tell me a little bit about your past to get you to what you're doing right now.
I've been in sleep medicine now for 15 years. It'll be 16 in October of this year. And I started off in the sleep lab. And like I tell people, that's really where I had the opportunity to really learn and witness the architecture and mechanism behind what it looks like. So I can say I've seen sleep, which is pretty cool. Because the electrodes in the brain. So, we're trying to know, what, when someone falls asleep and then what state of sleep they're in. And there's a bunch of different things that help us determine what stage of sleep they're in. We're monitoring the heart rate, we're monitoring the muscle activity, oxygen, and all these different things in your breathing and respiratory. And so I did that for a long time, and so then I broke out of that and started working during the day, for an independent pulmonologist. So the first half of my career was on the neurological side of sleep. Second half was on the pulmonary side, which is more like respiratory focused. And I was just helping people with their sleep, with their routines, with their schedules and different things like that. And so one day a guy goes, "Hey man, like you should do this for a living. You deliver information really well." And I said, "Well, I do it for a living." And he's like, "No, I mean like a business entrepreneur level." And I'm not gonna lie, dude, that scared the hell out of me, because I never thought of doing anything like that. So I just started researching, man, talking to people who are business owners, the do's and don'ts. And I know I'm gonna make my own mistakes, but what can I avoid now? And then in 2019 I launched Circadian Health Systems LLC. I do business at Circadian Health and Performance. COVID hit, and then that kind of derailed everything. But then things started like going up. I started working with Kalia Kappa of Chicago Sky, the WNBA. Their head coach, GM James Wade, worked with him. She competed in Tokyo in the Olympics as a swimmer. And I mean, the list can go on. I mean, I some Division I athletes, other professional. I mean, it's just been crazy for me. And but anyway, yeah. So sorry, I get long winded, but I at one, I am certified health coach, certified in sleep science, certified in sleep improvement from Harvard Health Publishing, and so that's really cool. I mean, I'm not really big on like titles, and like little things after your name, but it helps, because sometimes people are like, oh, well, what are your credentials? Sometimes that's important to people, no matter how long I've been doing this. So, but yeah, that's me, man.
How many clients do you have right now?
Oh my gosh. Trying to think. Like I keep adding them. On the pro athlete side, I would say about 10. I've got some NBA guys, but I had like I had to sign an NDA. Like that's the only this is so weird. So that's the only sport where I had to sign an NDA was like with NBA. It's so weird. No one else has made me do that. So like I can't like be like, oh yeah, I work with this guy, or I can't say, oh well, they play for this team, because like anything that tracks back to who they are, like that's a breach of contract. So yeah, it's kind of weird. That population is a little bit weird, but other than that, like yeah, man, I'm all over the place.
And one thing I wanted to ask you too, Thomas, is what are the effects of sleep on weight loss? You hear about that a lot, where if you don't get good quality sleep, it's going to affect your ability to actually lose weight. Can you talk a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're sleep deprived, so first I'll say that there are two hormones that pretty much regulate, when we eat. And sorry, you know, my brain, the back. I apologize for that. But there's two hormones that regulate, when we eat and then when we need to stop eating. And so what happens is when you're sleep deprived, the hormone that tells you that you want to eat is in, and the one that tells you to stop eating is suppressed. And so now what happens is you create higher calorie fat foods, and you don't really know that that's what's doing it. You're just like, oh man, I really want these cakes, or whatever, like these cakes. So you start snacking and doing a bunch of different stuff, and you don't realize that the sleep deprivation is what's driving you to do that, eat those. So when someone's like, oh man, I'm working out and I'm doing all the right things, but like I teach and I stop here and I get more weight. Or how you sleep? Oh, it's not all that great. Okay, well, like how you like what do you do at night when you're hungry? What do you? Oh, well, I snack a little bit, and then you start peeling that onion back. You realize, oh, well, that's what's causing this is the sleep deprivation. Now, sometimes it goes a little bit deeper than that. There's other things that are taking place that I can't help with, but for the most part, with the sleep deprivation side of it, you start focusing on that.
If there is one key point that you want to get across to someone that's watching this that might be interested in coming to see you, what would that be? What is the most important message that you want to get across to people out there, as to why they should come in and see you so you can help them?
Absolutely. So it's for me, it's all part of falling in love with the process of becoming great. And part of that process is taking care of your body. Part of taking care of your body is getting good night sleep, good night rest, and implementing sleep as a part of your training. That's what a lot of athletes make the mistake. And then they start getting injured. They're like, I don't understand. I put all this work and why am I getting injured? Because you're not sleeping properly. You're not allowing your muscle fibers and tissues to heal and fuse back together bigger, harder, and stronger. And so when they overwork or overtrain, that's when stuff like that happens. They don't realize that. They don't understand. So having one like me on the side help prioritize that, and then prioritize themselves is really beneficial for them.
Very good. Well, I'll tell you what, I definitely learned a lot here today, Thomas. I appreciate your time. Before we do sign off, I want to give you the floor to plug anything you'd like. Tell people where they can follow you on social media. Tell people where they can go to your website, where they can find all your work, and book an appointment to come in and see you. And anyone you want to thank, the floor is yours.
But find me on Instagram at TH Sleep Coach, Twitter TH Sleep Coach. Go to my website www.circadianhealth.org. You can create a profile. I get an email. It lets me know that you signed up that way. You can reach my phone number. You can text me, call me 309-880. We'll schedule a consultation. We'll talk about what's going on, to see if you're fit, for us to work together. We'll go from there. Get started.